My name is Margaret Gallegos, and I'm 32 years old. If you had asked me a month ago what my life looked like, I would have told you I was 3 weeks away from marrying the man I thought I'd grow old with. I would have told you I was exhausted from planning a wedding, juggling work, and doing all the emotional labor that comes with being the responsible one. But I would have said it with a smile, because back then I believed I was building something real. Funny how a single night can burn down an entire future. It started on a Friday evening, the day my fiancé Adrian left for his bachelor trip. His older brother organized it, but everyone knew who actually funded it. Me, half gnome 80% minimum. The resort was one of those upscale wilderness lodges, 2 hours out of the city. Glass cabins, private hot springs, bottomless whiskey, the whole rugged luxury thing men like to pretend makes them deep thinkers. Adrian had wanted something simple, but his brother insisted on something legendary, and after enough sighs and dramatic guilt about how hard he works, I ended up paying. But I didn't mind, or at least that's what I told myself. I loved him. Supporting him felt natural. We had agreed he'd FaceTime me that night, just a quick peek into the place I practically financed. So when my phone buzzed around 7 p.m., I smiled, set aside my wine, and answered. Adrian's face filled the screen. He was wearing one of those hotel robes that always look too plush to be real. His curls were damp, his cheeks flushed. I could hear boisterous voices around him, loud, drunken, already rowdy energy. "Babe," he said, grinning. "Give me 1 second, guys. Hold on, I'm showing her the room." He flipped the camera around, giving me a shaky tour. The champagne setup on the table, the oversized bathtub, the personalized itinerary the lodge left for him. "It looks amazing," I said, genuinely happy for him. "Right. You're the best, babe. Seriously." For 2 minutes, everything felt soft and warm between us. He blew me a kiss, told me they were heading to dinner, and reached toward the screen. Then the image went black, and I almost hung up until I heard it. Crystal clear, laughing, clinking glasses, voices too close and too crisp to be coming from a muted phone. My screen still showed connected. I froze. God, Adrian's voice came through, casual and loose with alcohol finally. Thought she'd never stop talking. A few guys burst out laughing. The air in my apartment turned cold. My thumb hovered over the red hang-up button, but my body wouldn't move. "That her?" one of the guys asked. "The Mrs.-to-be." Adrian snorted. Snorted. I'd never heard him do that before. "Yeah. 3 weeks and then I'm locked in for life." He said it like it was a chore. Like I was a chore. "Dude," another guy chimed in, "you're marrying up. She makes bank. She's like your safety net." To Margaret, someone toasted. The woman funding this whole trip. Cheers, laughter, a disgusting kind of chorus. My stomach twisted. "Hey," Adrian laughed. "I am not denying it. She's stable, predictable, responsible as hell. I need that. You know how many jobs I've burned through. She evens me out." "Yeah, but do you actually want that forever?" his brother asked. There was a pause, a long one. Adrian sighed dramatically. "Look, man, she's good, solid, like a reliable appliance. Always there, always working, never breaking down." My blood ran ice cold. "A freaking appliance," someone cackled. "You're killing me." My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. "I'm just saying," Adrian continued. "It's a smart match. She's stable. She'll probably take care of me for life. I mean, I'm going to quit my job after the wedding anyway." My breath stopped. What someone yelled. "He doesn't know that yet," Adrian added quickly. "But whatever. I'll bring it up after the honeymoon. Once we're married, she won't say no. She's too soft." Laughter means sharp smug filled the speaker. I felt my body go numb. "And if she does push back," Adrian said lightly, "we'll just start trying for a baby right away. Can't argue with that. She loves the whole family life thing." I snapped. I absolutely snapped. My thumb slammed the unmute button before I even realized what I was doing. Actually, I said, my voice somehow calm, despite the shaking flooding my whole body. "You won't have to worry about a baby, or quitting your job, or me taking care of you for life." Silence, instant silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. Then chaos. Margaret, holy shit, dude," she heard. "Oh my God." Adrian's face reappeared on my phone as someone fumbled with it. He looked like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over his head. "Babe, listen, wait, I can explain." "No," I said, my voice steady in a way it had never been with him. I heard everything. The appliance comment, the manipulation plan, the job quitting, every word. He paled. "It was just jokes, just guy talk." "I'm canceling the wedding," I said sharply. "Right now." He screamed my name as I grabbed my laptop. The venue coordinator answered on the second ring. Behind me, through the still open call, I heard yelling. "Adrian." His friends, his brother, all desperate, scrambling, panicking. "Hi," I said to the coordinator, my voice freezing into steel. "I need to cancel the reservation for 3 weeks from Saturday." "Ma'am, there's a cancellation fee." "I don't care," I said. "Cancel everything." I could hear Adrian shouting Margaret, "Wait, stop." But I was done waiting. I was done stopping. Next, the honeymoon resort. "Hi, cancel it." "Yes, I know it's non-refundable." Adrian's voice cracked behind me. "Why are you doing this? Please, please, we can fix this." "You were about to ruin my life," I said coldly. "I'm just stopping it early." Then I pressed one final button. His parents' contact. The call connected. Margaret, his father, answered warmly. "How's the bride too?" "The wedding is off," I said. And then I told them everything. The laughter, the comments, the manipulation plan, the job quitting, the future he thought he could dump on me. His mother gasped. His father went silent. Adrian sobbed in the background. I hung up. I blocked all of them, every number, every contact. Then I sat on my couch, shaking, staring at my reflection in the black screen of my laptop. 3 years. 3 years loving a man who saw me as a tool. And the worst part, I almost married him. The morning after everything exploded, I woke up feeling like my body had been filled with wet cement. Heavy, cold, unmovable. My phone lay face down on the nightstand, still buzzing occasionally from unknown numbers I refused to acknowledge. I didn't even need to check. I knew exactly who was trying to reach me. I dragged myself out of bed, made coffee, and stood barefoot in my kitchen, staring at the steam rising from the mug. The apartment was strangely quiet. I'd imagined I would wake up relieved free, but instead my mind felt hollow, the kind of emptiness that comes after a tornado rips through a neighborhood. No more noise, just wreckage. By 10 a.m., the wreckage knocked on my door. Hard. 3 loud, urgent thuds. I froze coffee halfway to my lips. Another set of bangs louder this time. Margaret opened the door, Adrian's voice, already frantic. I closed my eyes. I should have expected this. But hearing him raw, desperate, sent a wave of ice through my chest. I set the mug down and walked slowly toward the door, each step a small battle with myself. When I looked through the peephole, I saw 2 people, Adrian and his older brother Marcus. Great. The last thing I needed was a tag team intervention from the man who spent years calling me uptight whenever I wouldn't tolerate their childish nonsense. "Margaret, I know you're in there," Adrian pleaded. "Please, please, just 5 minutes." My jaw tightened. I unlocked the door, not because I wanted to, but because I knew they wouldn't leave otherwise, and opened it just enough to block their entrance with my body. Adrian looked wrecked. Hair unbrushed, dark circles under his eyes, last night's outfit creased and stale. Marcus, meanwhile, stood stiff with indignation, the complete opposite, clean clothes, rehearsed, irritation, and the expression of a man who believed he was here to fix the emotional woman. "What do you want?" I asked quietly. Adrian reached out, but I stepped back, making it clear he wasn't coming inside. "Margaret," he whispered, voice cracking. "I messed up. I was drunk. I didn't mean any of it. Please, can we talk?" Marcus cut in before I could respond. "You overreacted. Guys joke around. That's all it was." I stared at him. "Did you hear what he said?" "It was locker room talk," Marcus insisted with a shrug. "Every man gets cold feet. You women take everything so literally." There it was. The condescending tone, the insinuation that I was too emotional, too sensitive, too dramatic. I felt something in me harden. "Marcus, I said your brother compared me to an appliance. He said he was going to quit his job without telling me and use a baby to trap me into providing for him. If that's your version of jokes, I feel sorry for the women in your life." Marcus's jaw twitched, but he didn't back down. "You're throwing away a marriage over one stupid conversation." One conversation, I echoed. That exposed 3 years of manipulation. Adrian stepped forward. "Margaret, please. I love you. I was stupid. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Just come inside. Talk to me. Let's work this out." His voice trembled. He looked like a child begging a parent not to leave him behind. Part of me wanted to soften old instinct, old patterns, but I held the door firmly against my hip. "I'm not letting you in," I said. "Please," he whispered, eyes filling. "Just for 5 minutes." "No." The word didn't shake. I surprised even myself. Marcus scoffed. "Unbelievable. You're really going to throw his entire life into chaos because your feelings got hurt." My feelings, I said slowly, did not get hurt. My reality got revealed. He opened his mouth again, but I cut him off. "And before either of you try to gaslight me about what I heard, I should tell you the entire call was saved." Both men froze. Marcus's face strained. Adrian turned ghostly pale. You recorded it, Marcus demanded. I crossed my arms. The call stayed connected. Everything you said was still playing through my phone. I saved the audio before I hung up. A complete bluff. But they didn't know that. Marcus stuttered. That's illegal. It's legal if you both knew you were being recorded, I said. He initiated the call on my device. You were on speaker in a group. Your lawyer can explain the rest. Adrian swallowed hard. Margaret, please, don't ruin my life. Please delete it. I raised an eyebrow. Interesting. You're not denying anything happened. Just scared there's proof. He flinched. Margaret, he whispered, voice cracking again. Tell me what you want. I'll do anything, I swear. What I want, I said quietly, is for you to leave. Adrian's face twisted. We sent 200 invitations. My suit is tailored. My mother. You should have thought about that before calling me a tool in front of your friends. Marcus stepped forward aggressively. You can't just kick him out of your life like this. Relationships take work. I met his stare without flinching. I'm done being the only one doing the work. Silence. Long, heavy, uncomfortable. Adrian wiped his face with shaky hands. I don't have anywhere to go, he said miserably. I told my roommate I was moving out after the wedding. He already rented my room to someone else. That's unfortunate, I said, but not my problem anymore. Marcus glared at me like he wanted to punch a wall. You're heartless. No, I answered, my voice steady. I'm finally respecting myself. They didn't have a response for that. Eventually, Adrian broke first. His shoulders sagged, his eyes emptied, and he stepped backward, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. We'll talk again, he whispered. You'll cool off. No, I said, I won't. He hesitated one last time, then walked away. Marcus followed, shaking his head, muttering something hateful under his breath. When the elevator doors closed, I shut the apartment door and locked it. My hands were shaking not with fear but with adrenaline. For the first time in years, I'd set a boundary and held it. But the battle wasn't over. My phone lit up with message after message, his mother, his cousins, mutual friends, even people I barely knew. Guilt pressure, self-righteous lectures, emotional manipulation. All of it poured in like a flood. I blocked every number one by one. By afternoon, I finally sank onto my couch. And for the first time since the Bachelor call, I let myself cry. Not because I wanted Adrian back, but because I'd spent 3 years loving someone who never actually loved me back. Not really, not the way I deserved. The truth hit me hard. I hadn't just avoided a bad marriage. I had escaped a lifetime of being used. Monday arrived with the kind of heaviness that sits in your bones. I woke up groggy, my mind replaying fragments of the Bachelor trip call, like a scratched recording I couldn't turn off. I forced myself through a shower, pulled on work clothes that suddenly felt too tight around my throat, and told myself I could hold it together for 8 hours. That was all I needed to survive 8 hours. I entered the lobby of my office building, expecting the usual hum of keyboards and murmured greetings, but instead I walked into chaos, centered around one familiar figure. Adrian's mother stood in the middle of the marble floor like a storm cloud dressed in pearls. She was pacing with the fury of someone convinced the world had personally wronged her. I didn't even get a chance to retreat before she spotted me. She marched toward me, heels clacking like gunshots. There you are, she snapped. We need to talk. Her voice echoed across the lobby and every head nearby turned. No, we don't, I replied, hoping to keep this on the quieter side of humiliating. That hope died immediately. You will listen to me, she insisted, her voice rising loud enough to make the receptionist flinch. My son is devastated. You humiliated him. You humiliated our family, and you need to fix this. I stared at her, stunned by how confidently she twisted reality. Fix what exactly? Your son called me a reliable appliance and admitted he planned to quit his job without telling me. That was foolish talk, she said with a dismissive wave. Men talk nonsense with their friends. You should know better than to take it seriously. It wasn't nonsense, I said. He talked about using a baby to trap me into supporting him. She blinked, hesitated, then pushed through. Many women stay home with children. He's not a woman. You make more money, she snapped. It makes sense for you to support him. You are being dramatic about something that could have been worked through. A strange laugh escaped me. You're defending financial manipulation. I'm defending my son, she said, leaning closer. You are being overly emotional. There it was, the accusation meant to shut women down. I took a breath, straightened my shoulders, and said, I'm done talking to you. Then I turned to the receptionist. Please call security. As if summoned by cue, 2 guards approached. One asked politely if there was a problem. I explained she wasn't an employee or client and was disrupting the lobby. They asked her to leave. She pointed at me with shaking hands, hissing, You will regret this. When you're alone and miserable, remember you threw away a good man." Then the guards escorted her out while the entire lobby watched. I made it upstairs with my pulse thundering in my ears. My boss called me into his office almost immediately. I expected a reprimand, but he simply shut the door, leaned against his desk, and said, "Are you all right?" I apologized for the disturbance, but he shook his head. "Don't apologize. You handled yourself well. And my son went through something similar. He nearly married someone who wanted access to a trust fund he didn't know she knew about. People hide their intentions until they slip. Consider yourself lucky you found out early." That unexpected support loosened something tightly knotted in my chest. Unfortunately, the universe wasn't done with me. On Wednesday evening after the gym, I found Adrian sitting on the steps of my building. The sight of him there, deflated, slumped over, still in yesterday's clothes, sent a complicated mix of irritation and pity through me. He stood when he saw me. "I've been here since lunch." His voice was hoarse. "You blocked me everywhere. I didn't know what else to do." "You need to go home," I told him. "I don't have one," he said. "My roommate already replaced me." I told him I was moving out after the wedding. "I can't stay with my parents. They're furious." "That's not my responsibility," I said. "Not anymore." He hesitated, rubbed his face, then admitted the part that made me step back in disbelief. "I quit my job." "You what?" "I quit yesterday. I thought it would show you I was serious about us, that I was willing to change everything for you. You made yourself financially dependent on me because you thought that would fix things." The absurdity of it made my head spin. He looked at the ground. "Schools don't hire mid-year. My position's gone. I don't know what to do." I realized then that I hadn't just avoided a bad marriage. I had avoided becoming the only adult in a partnership with a man who defaulted to collapse the moment he faced consequences. He begged softly at first, then desperately for another chance. "I love you," he whispered. "Please, I can't lose you." "You don't love me," I said, exhausted. "You love the stability you get from me." He looked gutted, but there was no saving this. I told him this was the last conversation we would ever have, then went inside and locked the door. Even with a thick slab of wood between us, I could still hear the echo of everything we could have been and everything he revealed himself to be. The next day, his brother messaged me on LinkedIn, claiming I had destroyed Adrian, that I'd ruined his life, that he cried every night, and it was all my fault. I blocked him instantly. 2 hours later, I received a call from a law office Adrian was exploring financial compensation. For a moment, my stomach dropped. Then I contacted my cousin's husband, an attorney who listened carefully and then burst into a short, disbelieving laugh. "He has no case," he said. "None. Courts don't force ex-partners to pay for canceled weddings, especially not when manipulation is involved. And if he tries anything stupid, I'll handle it." When I ended the call, I finally exhaled long enough to feel my lungs ache. Relief didn't feel light or gentle. It felt sharp, like something inside me was being painfully necessarily cut away. I wasn't just leaving an engagement behind. I was leaving a disaster waiting to happen. And for the first time since everything collapsed, I understood something clearly. This wasn't heartbreak. It was liberation disguised as pain. The days following Adrian's attempted legal stunt were a blur of exhaustion, adrenaline, and a kind of bone-deep disbelief that kept me hovering somewhere between anger and numbness. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt my shoulders tense. I blocked over a dozen people in 48 hours, his cousins, his friends, even acquaintances who barely knew us, but still felt entitled to an opinion. The message was always the same. "He made a mistake. You're overreacting. Relationships take forgiveness." One even had the audacity to say, "You should be grateful he picked you. Men like him don't come around twice." I laughed out loud at that one before hitting block. But the pressure didn't stop. If anything, it escalated. By Thursday afternoon, I received an email from Adrian's lawyer officially stating he was not pursuing action. I printed it out, put it in a folder, and set it on my dining table like a trophy. The moment I saw the subject line, "Case closed," something inside me loosened. I wasn't legally threatened anymore. That particular storm had passed. But emotionally, things were just starting to boil. The emotional harassment reached a point where I decided to do something I'd been resisting for years. I booked a session with a therapist. Not because I felt broken, but because I realized I had a pattern one that started long before Adrian one that made me rationalize excuse, soften, and bend whenever people cross boundaries. I was raised to be agreeable patient, the mediator. And that made me a perfect target for a man who needed structure and stability more than he ever needed love. My therapist was calm, gentle, and startlingly perceptive. She asked questions no one ever had. When did you first learn that it was easier to keep the peace than to speak up? When did you start believing that you had to be the responsible one in every relationship? When did emotional labor become your default role? Each question hit deeper than the last. I didn't cry. I didn't know how to yet, but something inside me began to shift, like a wall starting to crack. That evening, as if by cosmic timing, Adrian's sister, someone I hardly spoke to, sent me a furious paragraph on Instagram accusing me of destroying her brother's future and humiliating him and being cold-hearted. She ended with, "He was going to give you a family. You threw that away." I didn't reply. I blocked her. But her words lingered not because they were true, but because I had once believed the same lie. I had convinced myself that any man willing to marry me was automatically a blessing. My therapist's voice echoed in my head. Where did that belief come from? Who taught you that love is something you earn instead of something freely given? On Friday, a week after the Bachelor trip disaster, the messages finally slowed. Some mutual friends reached out to check on me, not to guilt me, not to pressure me, but to genuinely ask if I was okay. A few even admitted they had seen red flags for years, but didn't know how to tell me without sounding judgmental. One said, "Honestly, Margaret, he acted like you were his parent, not his partner." Hearing others say out loud what I'd felt quietly for years made me realize how much I had normalized. I'd covered his late rent twice, paid for trips, picked out birthday gifts for his family from both of us, managed every holiday plan, handled every argument by smoothing over his hurt feelings. Every time he got upset, I caved first. 3 years of giving and giving while he took and took, never maliciously in obvious ways, but slowly, subtly, in ways that allowed him to lean so hard into my stability, he eventually forgot he was supposed to stand on his own. That night, I sat alone on my couch with takeout containers around me and opened my laptop to the wedding budget spreadsheet, the one I had spent months perfecting. I clicked through the tabs: venue, catering, decor, photography, all the deposits, all the expenses, all the receipts I had managed alone. The numbers were right there. I had paid for nearly everything. He had contributed so little it was almost laughable. Looking at the spreadsheet, I asked myself the question I had been avoiding. Why was I willing to carry everything? Why did I accept being the backbone of a partnership instead of being someone's equal? Why did I confuse stability with love? I closed the laptop and just sat there in silence for a long time. The next morning, Saturday, exactly 2 weeks before what would have been our wedding, my phone vibrated with a message from one of Adrian's friends. Not the ones who mocked me. Someone decent. "Be careful today," he wrote. "He's not doing well. He's talking about coming to see you again." The warning sent a cold ripple through me, not because I was afraid he'd hurt me physically, but because I was tired. So incredibly tired of being the emotional crash pad for a grown man who couldn't handle the weight of his own consequences. By noon, my doorbell rang. I didn't answer. He called, he texted, he left voicemails, 26 in total, all variations of begging, pleading, promising, guilt-tripping. I blocked him again. By sunset, the voicemails stopped. A strange, shaky quiet filled my apartment, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the silence of someone who knew the storm wasn't done, just waiting for its next form. Around 9 p.m., I got one final message. Not from Adrian, from his father. It said only one sentence. "You did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I stared at that text for a long time, because beneath all the noise, all the guilt, all the pressure, that sentence finally landed in the space inside me that had been waiting to hear it. This wasn't harsh. This wasn't heartless. This wasn't an overreaction. It was the first time in years I had chosen myself. The morning of the day that should have been my wedding arrived quietly without the fanfare or dread I'd expected. I opened my eyes in a sunlit room that was nothing like the bridal suite I had reserved months ago. No hair and makeup team waiting, no white dress hanging on the door, no bouquet, no nervous excitement in my stomach. Just the stillness of an apartment that belonged entirely to me. My best friend Lena texted me at 9 a.m. "We're coming over. Don't get dressed. Don't argue." I didn't have the energy to argue anyway. By 10, she arrived with 2 of my closest girlfriends carrying coffee breakfast and a kind of determined cheerfulness I couldn't help but appreciate. They didn't try to comfort me with cliches or tell me everything happened for a reason. They didn't mention Adrian at all. Instead, they handed me a sweater, told me to grab sunscreen, and ushered me downstairs without explaining where we were going. When we pulled up to the marina, I blinked at the boat waiting for us. Nothing fancy, just a small rental with enough space for the four of us, a cooler, and the unspoken desire to breathe in air that didn't remind me of canceled vows. Lena grinned. If you're not getting married today, at least you're getting a boat day. I almost laughed. Almost. The water was calm as we set off blue-gray and glassy under the morning sun. The breeze tangled my hair and loosened tension in parts of my body I didn't even realize were clenched. For hours we drifted, talked about nothing important, listened to music, and ate snacks straight from the bag, like teenagers cutting class. Around what would have been the ceremony time, 2:00 p.m., my phone buzzed in the pocket of my jacket. Lena turned down the music as I pulled it out. Unknown number. I knew, instantly, before I even answered. I shouldn't have picked up. But closure is a strange and hungry thing, and some part of me needed to hear whatever he had left to say. I answered. There was no greeting. Just his voice, thin, hollow, like someone speaking from the edge of something dark. So you really went through with it? Adrian, I said carefully. Where are you? At the venue. His breathing wavered. I'm outside. There's another wedding today. They're setting up. It should have been us. I closed my eyes. The deck of the boat rocked gently beneath my feet, grounding me more than I expected. Why would you go there? I asked quietly. Because he said you need to understand what you took from me. A slow, cold burn spread through my chest. The familiar script, the blame, the refusal to see himself. I didn't take anything from you, I said. Your words did this. Your choices. You could have forgiven me. I forgave you many times, I said. For smaller things I told myself were nothing. For disappointments I pretended not to notice. But this wasn't small. This was who you really are. He sucked in a shaky breath. You ruined me, Margaret. Do you get that I'm unemployed, living with my parents? Everyone thinks I'm a gold digger. You admitted you were using me, I said calmly. It was one conversation, one stupid drunken night. You said it comfortably, I replied. That's the part you don't understand. It wasn't a slip, it was honesty. Silence stretched across the line. Then softly, I need money. My stomach tightened. Of course you do. I quit my job for you, he said, as if that somehow obligated me. Schools won't hire mid-year. My parents can't support me. I'm drowning. Get another job. No one's hiring. He sounded desperate. Just help me for a few months, please. You were going to be my wife. You were going to support me anyway. I was going to support my husband, I said. Not someone who manipulated me into being his safety net. You won't even help me get back on my feet. His voice cracked. After everything. After everything I repeated, I owe you nothing. The quiet on the line suddenly felt heavy, like he was trying to swallow words he didn't want to say. You're cruel, he whispered. No, I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I'm just done. And then I ended the call. For a moment, I stared at the blank screen, my reflection barely visible in the glare. My hands shook, not with doubt, but with relief, so sharp, it almost felt like pain. Lena squeezed my shoulder gently, a silent acknowledgement. The rest of the afternoon passed in a slow, soothing haze. We fished, lounged on the deck, took ridiculous photos, and let the wind tangle our hair. No one mentioned weddings. No one mentioned Adrian. For the first time in a long time, I felt like my life was mine again. When we returned to shore, the sky had shifted into soft orange. My friends hugged me tightly before leaving for the evening. I went home showered and changed into comfortable clothes. The apartment felt different, lighter, like something corrosive had finally been removed. A week later, through mutual acquaintances, I learned the aftermath. Adrian had moved back to his hometown with his parents. He was working retail because no schools were hiring. His mother still posted dramatic Facebook messages about forgiveness and loyalty, but no one in the extended family was engaging anymore. People were tired of the drama. Meanwhile, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt steady, quiet, free in a way that made me realize just how heavy the relationship had been. The next few days, I poured myself into small tasks, updating my apartment, buying a new duvet, rearranging furniture I had once chosen to match his tastes. Each change felt like reclaiming pieces of myself. I returned the engagement ring and received 60% back. I donated part of it to a literacy program for kids. He always said teaching children to read mattered to him. It felt right to put something good back into the world, instead of letting the money sit like a reminder of a future that never existed. By the end of that week, with the wedding day behind me, the phone calls finally stopped. My apartment was quiet again, quiet in a way that felt like healing instead of emptiness. I had closed the door on one life. and I was finally ready to step into the next. The days after what would have been my wedding felt strangely weightless, like the world had hit a reset button and I was still waiting for the new version of my life to download. I went through motions at first: work, errands, laundry, but something about the rhythm of everything had changed. It was the first time in years that I was making decisions without factoring in someone else's needs or moods. My apartment, once designed around Adrian's preferences, slowly began to look like a place I actually lived in. I bought a set of soft gray sheets I'd always wanted, but he called too boring. I rearranged the living room furniture and realized how much space I had when I wasn't leaving room for someone else's clutter. I repainted a wall in the dining area simply because I liked the color. It felt small, but each change was like reclaiming a little piece of my identity pieces I hadn't realized I'd handed over so quietly. Therapy helped more than I expected. My therapist pointed out patterns I had absorbed for years, the belief that I had to be the responsible one, the emotional caretaker, the fixer, the partner who held everything together. She helped me see that Adrian wasn't my first project. I'd been collecting them my whole life. I learned how often I convinced myself that being needed was the same as being loved. I realized I had built relationships where I did the heavy lifting because I thought competence made me valuable and vulnerability made me a burden. For the first time, I understood why I had tolerated so much. Not because I lacked self-respect, but because I had been taught to equate selflessness with worthiness. Unlearning that was difficult, necessary, liberating. As the quiet settled in, I forced myself not to rush through it. People underestimate how hard peace can be after years of managing someone else's chaos. I found myself lingering in silence, letting it feel familiar instead of foreign. I started cooking dinners just for myself. I took walks in the evenings, not power walks, not workouts, just slow meandering through my neighborhood listening to music. I even stopped at a bookstore one night and picked up 3 novels simply because I wanted to. Small things, but they felt like bricks in a new foundation. 2 weeks after the wedding day passed, Lena talked me into going on a casual coffee date with someone she knew through work. It wasn't meant to be serious, just a way to ease myself back into the world. His name was Jordan, a quiet, kind man with gentle eyes and a laugh that didn't feel performative. We talked for an hour about work, about hobbies, about disastrous relationships we'd both escaped. When I told him why my engagement ended, he didn't look shocked or judgmental. He simply nodded thoughtfully and said, "I've been there. My ex told his friends I was his practice boyfriend until someone better came along." We exchanged battle stories like soldiers comparing scars. It ended with a warm handshake and a casual, "Let's talk again sometime." No pressure, no expectations. It didn't turn into anything romantic, but it reminded me that not everyone saw love the way Adrian had: transactional, strategic, conditional. Around that time, I returned the engagement ring. The jeweler processed the refund with polite indifference, unaware of the years of hope and illusion attached to that tiny piece of metal. I walked out of the store feeling lighter. With part of the refunded money, I donated to a children's literacy program. It wasn't symbolic in a dramatic way, just something that felt like redirecting the energy into growth instead of bitterness. Meanwhile, through mutual contacts, I learned Adrian's situation had deteriorated further. He'd moved back to his hometown and was working retail. His parents refused to discuss him openly, and his mother had stopped posting her dramatic Facebook monologues after being called out by relatives. His sister told him he needed to stop contacting me or risk the family cutting him off entirely. The last I heard, he'd stopped trying to reach me, not out of acceptance, but because he no longer had a path to do so. I didn't celebrate his downfall. I didn't gloat. I didn't want punishment for him. I wanted distance. That was all. As life regained its rhythm, I made subtle choices that built momentum. I joined a weekend pottery class I had always wanted to try. I started going out more, not the kind of outings where I had to check in or convince someone to come, but spontaneous, joyful ones with people who actually cared about me. I even booked a short solo trip for the first time in my adult life, something I never would have done while managing Adrian's constant emotional fluctuations. The biggest shift was internal. I stopped apologizing for wanting something real, something where I didn't have to earn affection by carrying the entire weight of the relationship. I began to truly believe, that I deserved a love that wasn't built on convenience or dependency, a love that wasn't afraid of honesty, a love that didn't require me to shrink to make someone else feel bigger. One night, about a month after the Bachelor trip call that changed my life, I stood at my apartment window looking out at the city lights. The world felt wide again, open, a place I could step into without fear of being used or mistaken for a safety net. I whispered to myself, not dramatically, not tearfully, just with quiet certainty. I wasn't a tool. I wasn't a backup plan. I was just choosing the wrong man. It wasn't closure. It wasn't finality. It was recognition. I deserved someone who loved me, not for what I offered, not for the stability I provided, not for the future I represented. Someone who loved me for me. And for the first time in a long time, I believed